everybody, and welcome back to We Bought a Mic for a little bit of chill catch-up here, coming down off of Robin and catching up on the latest in film and TV here. My name's Ernest. Welcome.
I am clean-shaven Hunter. Well, I'm not exactly clean-shaven. I was clean-shaven like 2 days ago, and now the stubble is thick at this point.
We went to a concert and you showed up clean.
I was clean. I wanted to shave before this pod, but timing did not permit. I see, much like Robin Williams, I'm a very hairy guy.
Right.
Like, the reason why I have a beard, it's not just because I look damn good in a beard, which we all know that I do, but it's also just because I'm very lazy. And if I could just like not do something, I would rather not do something than do something 100 times out of 100. And usually like shaving, that applies to shaving.
Well, let's be lazy. Let's be lazy on the pod right now.
Listen, yeah,
We're
that's
chilling.
why it's just like I'm past the 5 o'clock shadow. I'm at like a 12 o'clock shadow.
And we've got Brian joining us post Patch Adams episode. How you doing, Brian?
I'm here. I'm doing well. I am maybe I don't want to claim on the pod, but I might be one of the biggest fans of golf. I've been a nerd about it lately, so part of my catch up has been binging a few of the golf movies. And there aren't too many
movies.
There aren't too many, but yes.
There's some great ones though.
There's some great ones.
There's some just straight bangers. We were talking Caddyshack, The Gilmores.
Okay.
It's just pure classics. Have you been watching like golf itself? Like
you're honestly
just movies.
I have been watching golf. The season ended for the FedEx Cup playoffs and all that about a month ago, but I got into that really. But the movies, man, I've watched The Ballad of, I think, Buster Scruggs, or Ballad of, I think that's what it is, the Matt Damon Will Smith movie.
Oh no, not Buster Scruggs. That's
Buster Scruggs is the Coen Brothers movie.
Is that the Western one?
Badger Vance.
Thank you, Badger Vance.
Yes, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
See, so, I gotta tell you boys, all your sports movies.
Yeah, the Legend of Bagger Vance. Yeah. No, that's a classic one. I haven't seen Legend of Bagger Vance, but I know about that one. Charlize is in that one, isn't she?
I think so. It's Matt Damon, dude. It's way more him than Will Smith, but everyone thinks it's a Will Smith movie till you watch it.
And that's a golf movie?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
When I think about golf movies, the first one that jumps into my head is the Shia LaBeouf one.
Greatest game ever played.
Yeah.
I think.
Did you catch up on that one?
I did, dude. I didn't watch that till maybe 2 months ago, and I really liked it. I follow Josh Flitter, I think it is, on Twitter. I think his name's Flitter. I don't know. But yeah, he's the little caddy in that movie. So he's a Nickelodeon staple, I think, growing up. But,
that movie's definitely Disney adjacent, Nickelodeon adjacent.
And remake it now with those two and just see how well that goes. But Tin Cup is my favorite. Just let me staple that to my name.
Tin Cup is a classic. Oh my God, yeah. Tin Cup is actually like one of my mom's favorite movies ever. Mostly because she is madly in love with Kevin Costner. Like
he's wearing a backwards cap and a white tank top.
Kevin Costner is one of those guys, like every mom has them, where there's just those guys who like you just talk about. My mom's just like, he's just so handsome. Like she gets like fucking bashful, and I'm like, Costner. Mom, stop it. You cannot have Kevin Costner.
Is this why 24 was always on in your home?
No, that's because we.
Oh wait, no,
that's
Kiefer. That's
Kiefer Sutherland.
Oh God.
Although my mom does love Kiefer and
Donald. Kiefer and Kevin Costner are very, very close to sharing the same DNA.
They look kind of similar. They're a similar type of guy. They are like, I'm going to say about 15 years apart in age, if not more than that. But no, definitely more than that. Probably like closer to like 20 plus years in age difference. But yeah, no, I watch 24 in my house all the time because I love good cinema. And I think that we should bring back torture.
Yeah. No, and
Bush's
American was our high point. Exactly. Yeah. So speaking of sports films, Brian, I wanted to shout out the little message you sent us in our Discord. basically you sent a little graphic where you sent us your top 3 football movies because football season is here. You guys were talking just off mic about the whole Tua situation and the rise and fall of the Dolphins, and
very, very short rise. Like we can say it was like, it's more of like an accidental skip. You know, when you like walk sometimes and you like trip, but then you like turn into a skip. That was the high that the Dolphins experienced.
I hope that man recovers.
Yeah, me too. Thoughts and prayers.
So why don't you give us your quick number 1, 2, and 3 that you included? And did you make this graphic? You included like little screenshots from each film. It's like a little rundown of what to expect from each one of
look
these.
at you, Brian, just being that guy, just out here making graphics.
Y'all, I got time. Yeah. So okay. So So I made it because I was watching Best of Times, Robin Williams, doing that. But the replacements, oh my gosh.
Honestly, I need to see all these. I haven't seen any of these movies.
Well, so it's Varsity Blues is number 3. The Best of Times is number 2. I wish it had more than just Kurt Russell and Robin Williams, but 2 is fine. The Replacements is number 1. Keanu Reeves.
The Replacements rocks. Yeah.
I love that movie, dude. I always, The Kicker too.
I've always heard
that's
great
like,
things.
that is a classic cable movie. Like that is a movie that I've seen like 100 times just because it was like on Comedy Central. It was on FX. It was on USA. Like it was just a movie that was just somehow every TV network had access to this movie. It was on all the time. I will say, I think I definitely saw Varsity Blues when I was a kid. I don't really remember a ton of it. Never seen The Best of Times. Couple movies that are surprisingly missing on here. One, Remember the Titans.
Oh, that's a classic.
Absolute classic.
Denzel.
Banger of a movie. That's legitimately in one of my top 10 favorite Denzel performances ever. Like he is amazing in that movie. I love Remember the Titans. And The Longest Yard. You could go classic Burt Reynolds or remake with Adam Sandler. Either one. Definitely not a great movie, but a movie I loved as a kid. Gridiron Gang with The Rock. Remember Gridiron Gang, guys?
Big Under Armour move.
That is a huge. That's like the first time I ever saw Under Armour. I was like, oh man, that's like the bad boy. Like honestly, fuck Nike, dude. I want Under Armour shit now.
Isn't Sean William Scott in that movie?
I know Exhibit's in it. I think no, yeah, you're thinking of Goon, the hockey movie.
Oh, okay.
No, Gridiron Gang is like Exhibit is in it. I don't remember if anybody else really famous was in
It's him and The Rock,
Nothing's
but
coming
like
to
I don't think
mind.
the players were famous at all.
So according to Google,
Yeah.
the number 1 football movie is Concussion.
A movie that's just about there's no football that happens
It's the
in
first one that comes up.
That movie was such a phenomenon. I remember when that movie came out and the NFL only then was like, hey, maybe we should look at brain injuries, which kind of funny that, well, not funny is the wrong word, that we were just talking about the poor handling of Tua off mic before we started recording.
Well, that's because that movie
podcast.
came out in 2015.
Yeah, and we're still doing this.
Wow.
We're still doing this.
Well, they forgot about it. They're like, oh yeah, Concussion. I guess we should care about that.
Ernie, where's Draft Day on that list?
Okay. Let's see.
I'm being a smart ass. It's not a good movie. It's
Draft
not.
No, it's on
I
here. It's
hate
on
Draft
here.
Day.
It's on here.
I cannot
Really?
stand that movie.
I've got the DVD. I don't love it. I just have it.
So here's how it goes. It goes Concussion, American Underdog.
Remember that movie that came out last year? It's the Christian adjacent movie about Kurt Warner.
The Blind Side, Sandy Bullock.
Woof.
Love to see it.
Okay. Not a
Big
great look
Mike.
for this list so far.
Something
Mike.
called Greater. I don't think this is a real movie. And then Draft Day. Also on this
We Are
list-
Marshall. is
Yeah,
on
We Are
here.
Marshall.
So I
Ooh.
want to say I went through, I think it might have been on a podcast. Maybe it was off mic that I just went through like how mad the movie Draft Day made me while watching
Yeah.
it, because the logic is truly insane. Like, Kevin Costner needs to be fired tomorrow because he is the worst GM I've ever seen in my life. Like, he's out here doing like NBA 2K shit with his trades, and like, it's not real life.
Oh,
that we're
and
living
old
in.
Udoka stuff too. Old Boston coach stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, the fine details
Hey,
haven't been
that-
released yet. It was a consensual relationship. Allegedly, he's
But-
banned for a year.
Hey, they just made the finals. They're doing fine.
Sure, I'm not worried at all. I'm definitely not worried.
Oh.
I mean, if we're going football adjacent movies, like something even like The Blind Side, if we're bringing in those movies, then it's Jerry Maguire by a landslide as the
Oh.
best football movie. Like,
Perfect.
if we're, but I don't know if that's like a full pure football movie. Like, that is different than Remember
It's
the
about
Titans or
football.
Replacements. But if we're bringing it, like, The Blind Side is about football.
Yeah.
Draft Day is about football. They aren't actually playing
Friday
the
Night
game of
Lights is
football
a
in it.
good movie. Mm-hmm.
Friday
Yeah.
Night Lights. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And the TV show. Yeah.
That was a good show.
Invincible.
Rudy. Oh, Invincible.
Mock.
I loved Invincible as a kid.
Yeah, dude. Anyone can
Rise Up
join the
Eagles.
Philadelphia Eagles.
Just anybody, you just walk on the team and you're good. I will say one of the best things about the movie Invincible is that it inspired a top tier episode of Always Sunny in Philadelphia,
Yes.
where the gang is invincible.
The gang is invincible. Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned Jerry Maguire. So this is a perfect segue because I watched Jerry Maguire this week for the first time. Trying to do a little bit of a Tom watch through here. And I had never seen Jerry Maguire. And I was like, you know what? It's time. It's time. Also, we've yet to bring this up, but we just had a fucking hurricane just destroy half of our state.
Yeah.
Here in Florida. Which if you're out there and you're hurting from Hurricane Ian, we're with you. We got really, really lucky here. Well, I was expecting this podcast studio to get flooded. I kind of prepped it to get flooded, and I'm very lucky that it didn't happen.
Mhm.
So we're doing fine, but it kind of halted everything for a few days.
Yeah.
So
It was scary. It was losing power. It was all that kind of stuff.
I had time to watch some stuff, and one of those things was Jerry Maguire, and it was just the perfect. Us Florida folk here, hurricane time is party time, and if you're just chilling, waiting out the storm or post storm, it's time to get rowdy. So post hurricane also means post party. So I was hungover as hell after the hurricane, and it was just the perfect day to watch Jerry Maguire. And man, what a great fucking movie.
It might be like the best use of Tom Cruise in any movie. It takes like everything that you know about Tom Cruise as he's like charismatic, but also like kind of like a skeevy piece of shit.
Yeah.
And just plays that into his character in like such a genius way. This movie's perfect. Like, I love it so much.
He should have won a fucking Oscar for this
it's
movie.
incredible how good he is in this movie.
Renee
It's so good.
Zellweger is also great. Obviously, Cuba Gooding Jr., who won an Oscar for it. Cameron Crowe, of
Mhm.
We Bought a Zoo fame. We all know him.
Of course.
I don't know. Like, it's just the kind of movie, we talk about this a lot, but it's like the kind of movie that doesn't get made anymore.
Or if it does, it's not an awards movie.
Right.
Like, that's what's
Mm.
insane about this is that like
Best
this movie
Picture.
was a Best Picture
Yeah.
nominee and was like one of the big contenders of
Right.
1996. And like this movie, a version of it might get made now, but it's not a contender. It's just like a movie
What's a
that
TV show?
it's
It's an
that's the thing.
HBO
Yeah, it's an
mini
HBO Max
series.
series. Yeah, and it's a movie that gets like I don't know, like 2 Emmy nominations,
Yeah.
and then like that's it.
Right.
It kind of disappears.
Jerry Maguire
The thing-
thoughts, Brian?
Oh, I'm full of them. I love that movie, dude. You had me at hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Show me the money.
Ernie. Show
I love
me the
black
money!
It's so many quotable lines. Like it is endlessly quotable.
Dude, his celebration dance when he scores. I think he plays for the Cardinals, or is it like a
Yeah,
fake
Cardinals.
team?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I love that movie. I love the start of it when he's leaving the office and he's just like
anyone coming with me? Screw this place. And Renee Zellweger,
She's there.
Man, I like Jerry Maguire. I've always thought it's a good movie, but Tom is a nuthead, and that movie's great for him.
It's a great use of his talents, because you need that energy, and you need the charisma. You need the kind of wacko part, because it's just the story of this guy that's going all in on one player. He's just going to be the agent for one player. And you buy that relationship so well.
Terrible agent. Like, that's not what you do if you're an agent.
But in the context of the movie, you buy it.
Yeah.
Like, you understand it.
He took a page out of the Robin Williams and Patch Adams book. And he's like, I don't see the numbers. I see the people here.
Ernie, I haven't seen it in a while. What's the thing? He has like a second athlete he represents, some like Southern guy or some quarterback from college. How does that end? Do they stick or do they leave?
Well, okay, so the athlete has his dad go in on the deal, and the dad is like, we don't need to sign a contract. We can just shake hands on it. And then Jerry's like, yeah, of course, let's shake hands on it. Buddy, you sign that fucking contract.
Sign the dotted line,
because then
buddy.
he goes and he just leaves him
Yeah.
for another agent.
Oh, yeah.
For the guy,
dude.
for Bob Sugar. Great name, by the way.
Bob Sugar.
Bob
That's a
Sugar
great
is
name.
the rival agent.
There's like a lot of stuff. If you like read into the makings of the movie, like a lot of it is about kind of that there was, especially in the 90s, and like Jordan blew up the sports scene in a whole different way, between Jordan and the Bulls and like the Cowboys and their heyday and everything. Like the 90s, the mid 90s were such a huge thing for sports, and a huge blow up in agency firms. And that's like, this movie is kind of a reaction to all that.
Right.
So like, you can also like read this as like almost like a little bit of an analog for some of the stuff that's happening in the time, with the big agency that he's leaving is acting like it's
Right.
one of those big agency that still exists today.
I also wanted to shout out Regina King, who plays Cuba Gooding Jr.'s wife. Just all the performances are amazing. And to see her like so early on in her career, give an incredible performance. Love seeing her. So I just wanted to touch on a couple other hurricane watches real quick that I did. I did a Audrey Hepburn double feature with Lee.
Nice.
You can't see it. It's off frame. You can barely see it, but there is a Breakfast at Tiffany's big old frame poster here on top of Hunter. And I had never seen it before. And I saw it for the first time. And racism aside,
Yeah.
a lovely film.
There's a really rough character in Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Mickey Rooney plays a I guess Chinese or Japanese, like he's a very offensive stereotype landlord of the apartment building. And every time it cuts to that character, it is just incredibly upsetting. They should not have attempted that. It was a terrible mistake. Otherwise, really love the movie. Great performance by Audrey Hepburn. And the ending, it's one of those movies where it's like you don't really know where it's going because it's fluctuating heavily in tone throughout. It's like kind of wacky, kind of weird, kind of funny, kind of dramatic, just doing a lot. And then the ending really kind of ties the bow together, and you understand how the fluctuating tone ties into the character that she's playing, and it all sort of clicks together. So really loved it. And then Roman Holiday was the other one that we
Roman
saw.
Holiday is amazing. I love that movie.
I think that's the best movie I've seen this year. Just flat out.
It's so good. Like, that was a classic movie in my house. I used to watch that movie all the time.
Yeah. And another movie I watched a couple months ago is It Happened One Night. And It Happened One Night famously
the first winner of the Big Five.
Well, not only that, but it famously kind of invented the rom-com.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Roman Holiday perfected the rom-com. So It Happened One Night is, I think, from the 30s.
1920s.
Oh my God.
No. Yeah, it is from the 30s.
Yeah, like mid 30s. And then Roman Holiday comes along in the
34.
in the 60s.
Roman
And
Holiday, no, that's in the 50s. That's like early 50s.
okay,
I'm gonna
but
say
it's far enough.
53.
It's like almost 2 decades
Right.
after it happened one night. And it takes a lot of the same kind of blueprint of two people from different parts of life, different walks of life coming together and, you know, having a meet cute, and there's all sorts of hijinks that ensues. And I don't know, there's just something about it that felt timeless to me. And we've seen so many movies like it that pull from that template, but you see the original, the diamond in the center.
I mean, Hepburn and Gregory Peck together, just
incredible.
Like, I just fucking fireworks going off between them. I mean, Gregory Peck is also just like one of the best actors of the 50s and 60s. Like, whenever you think about, he's in like To Kill a Mockingbird, The Omen, which I think The Omen was in the 70s, but either way, yeah, no, him and Hepburn together is just, it's magical on screen. I love that movie. I haven't seen that movie in a few years. I have a giant Audrey Hepburn like box set at my house that Roman Holiday's in there. It's on blue. Yeah. That I might have to go home and bust that out.
Have you seen either of those, Brian?
I haven't, man. I'm trying to remember who Audrey Hepburn's daughter is. I think I just learned that a few months ago.
Really?
Katharine Hepburn.
Okay, see, I think I recognize her more than Audrey Hepburn. I know the name for sure, but Blind Spot, I don't think I've seen a movie older than like 1950s, late 50s, maybe early 60s.
Yeah, I'm definitely trying to watch more older movies, and Audrey Hepburn is a great way to get into those movies because there's just something about her. She just has this like kind of timeless quality to her. I think the only movie I'd seen by her before this was this movie called Two for the Road that we watched in college. And I just saw these two back to back, and I feel like I got a really good sense of her talent. Not just her acting chops, but just like her kind of on-screen movie star charisma. Really, really love both of them. Obviously, Breakfast at Tiffany's has that huge caveat of that incredibly offensive character, but Roman Holiday is just this perfect rom-com.
I apologize to the listeners. I actually just learned this right now. Katharine Hepburn and Audrey Hepburn are not related.
Yeah, I thought that. Yeah,
I thought that they had some kind of relation.
Yeah, no,
my bad.
I had heard that before.
Audrey Hepburn's daughter.
Please ignore me.
Okay.
Two thoughts real quick, if that's cool. So was Audrey Hepburn in Wizard of Oz? Was she Dorothy?
No, that's Judy Garland.
Yeah, it's Judy Garland.
Thanks. My girlfriend just yelled from the other room. I could hear that. She's like, no. Okay. I have not seen it, but I hear it's pretty good. Marvelous Miss Maisel. Is that the time frame of like the 20s, or is that like the 60s?
50s. It's like 50s into the 60s. So that show's now in its second or fourth season. So it starts in the 50s and it's now in the 60s. So yeah, similar.
I need to watch it. Right on.
I love that show. Its newest season was probably its weakest because I think it got really impacted by COVID, but it's worth watching. The early seasons are great. Okay. So I have a list here of movies that I've watched recently.
Okay.
And I don't think we're going to have time to talk about all of them. But I want to maybe focus on the new movies, right? So we touched on some classics, a little Jerry Maguire here, a little Audrey Hepburn there. So there's 3 movies, I guess 4 if you count Blonde, but maybe we don't have to get into
here's the thing.
Blonde.
I want you, these are new movies. Sell me and Brian on why we should watch these movies or why maybe we should skip these.
Okay.
Give your elevator pitch on these movies.
So the 3 movies are, I just mentioned Blonde. We'll see if we have time to get to my thoughts on Blonde. The 3 movies are Don't Worry, Darling, Barbarian, and 3,000 Years of Longing.
Okay.
What should we start with?
I have seen the last 2 there. So pitch me on Don't Worry, Darling. We did the last episode last week, or whenever it was. We talked about Spitgate. We talked about the whole background of Don't Worry, Darling. I will be honest with you. I have heard primarily bad things about this movie. I've heard that things about like that it is kind of a goddamn mess. I've heard specifically that Harry Styles is awful. Pitch me on why I should go see this movie, or maybe why I should avoid it.
All right. So, as we have said in previous episodes, this is the new film from Olivia Wilde, directed by Olivia Wilde. It's co-written by the same writing partner she had on Booksmart, based on a script by these two random guys that don't have any other credible credits on IMDb other than like random shit like Titanic 2 and Transmorphers.
Cool.
So these two guys wrote this script, Don't Worry, Darling, that was being passed around as an unmade script that was really buzzy. And there was a bidding war over it. Warner Brothers got it. They attached Olivia Wilde to it. They put her writing partner on it. Boom. There's all this drama in making and the lead up to the release of the movie. Now it's out and I've seen it. So obviously we're so plugged into this world. We know we have so much baggage going into some of these movies that have all of this kind of hullabaloo around their release. So I couldn't help but go in with some type of expectations, right? And obviously the buzz was really negative. So I was expecting something less than stellar. And I enjoyed it. Like, obviously, there's a lot of stuff that happens in this movie that is not, you can poke a lot of holes in it. You know, it doesn't really hold together super well. It's not the type of movie that lends itself to like really dissecting it too much or discussing it deeply. But I had a pretty good time at the movies. It was just a really good, a lot of times your enjoyment of a movie is what happens around the movie, right? How is your mood? How is the vibe? Who are you going with? Is it a good movie watching experience? And everything was set up well for me to enjoy this movie. Do I think it has problems? Yes. Do I think that some of the ideas don't really work? Yes. But I just thought as a movie, it did what a lot of movies have to do at the minimum with it, which is entertain you. And I've heard a lot of takes of people thinking that they were deeply bored by this movie. And I get it because it is incredibly derivative of better movies. And I've heard people just jump the gun in describing what movies it's being derivative of. And I think those are spoilers. So if you care about being spoiled about this movie, maybe skip forward a couple minutes to the next topic. But the movie is pulling heavily from films like The Matrix and Inception and Fight Club, these kind of really heady films that shift and challenge your thinking of what the story really
your
is.
Like expectations and like view on reality and shit like
exactly exactly. So those movies that I mentioned are classics. Those are incredible movies. Obviously your mileage may vary on your takes on Nolan and Fincher and the Wachowskis, but undeniably I think those movies have had a huge impact on film. Don't Worry, Darling is not on that caliber. It's not. But I think that Olivia Wilde has some ideas on her mind, and the script has on ideas on its mind about the patriarchy and about the control that men have over society and the lengths that some really shitty men will go to hold on to that power and that control. So there are some good ideas in this movie, and it's fun to see the ways in which the story explores them. And it's fun to see Florence Pugh and Harry Styles be hot and sexy on screen and drive cool cars and wear cool clothes.
Okay. You don't have to push me too hard in this movie because I am going to see it. I just haven't had a chance to because again, Florida got ravaged by a hurricane last week, so I haven't exactly had a ton of free time to go to the theater. But in all of your praises, You notably did not say anything about one of the main criticisms I have seen about this movie, which is that Harry's actively really bad at this. I've heard that Harry is
it fluctuates. There are some scenes
he needs to knock it off.
No, there are some scenes that are good. There are a couple. He has at least 1 or 2 scenes that I'm like, okay, you did the thing. You acted. You did an acting.
Is he like capital A acting or like?
No, dude. Florence Pugh is in this movie. She's acting slaps around everybody in this movie. Her performance in this movie is fucking phenomenal. It's way too good for the movie. The movie is right here. Florence Pugh is way up here. Like, she is phenomenal in this movie. Everybody else is pretty good. I mean, you've got Nick Kroll in there. Olivia Wilde herself is in there. Chris Pine is in there. Gemma Chan. There are good people in this movie doing in good work. The only problem is that it doesn't all really fit together super well. And like I said earlier, there's just a lot of holes that you can poke in this story, especially when it fully reveals itself and kind of you see the full context of what's really going on in the town of Victory, where something mysterious is going on. So, I don't know. It's one of those movies where it's just like, yeah, this is dumb. Like, yeah, it's kind of stupid.
Do you think so? I want to ask, do you think that the baggage was good or bad for this movie? Do you think that the baggage,
gossip, the drama,
like just all of
it was all for nothing,
everything that came around this? Do you think that in fact did help the movie at least have some kind of word of mouth? Because otherwise it would just fade into like mediocrity.
I mean, it's Harry Styles. I don't think it would have faded.
Working against. Okay, so it was going to make money. Like I don't mean mediocrity in the way that it's like not going to get a certain audience to come out and see it opening weekend. I mean mediocrity in the way that 6 months, no one will ever think about this movie again. Do you think that?
I don't think anyone's going to think about it again much.
Do you think that even with all of the nonsense surrounding this, it like just doesn't matter?
I mean,
it's just not worthy. It's not bad enough to like be despised or turned to a cult film. It's not good enough to be like resurrected as some great piece of art.
It's tough because I'm of the thinking that Olivia Wilde may have kind of fanned the flames of that gossip machine a little bit because she knew that the movie may have been a little bit dead in the water. Because
this is literally, I said this months ago before anyone ever saw this movie. I said, this is all just a ploy because this movie actually is like pretty mids. Yeah. And like, that's just what this fucking movie is. This is the only way to make it relevant.
You hear her talk about the movie and everything she has to say about it is like, there is a little piece of something interesting there that she clearly has in her mind about men and about how toxic men can be, but it doesn't really give itself over to that much more. And it sucks because I have heard a lot of bad faith arguments against this movie of people thinking like critics that I enjoyed listening to and hearing from that are just not getting what this movie is about. Like a lot of this movie, it's very abstract and they're taking it too literally and they're pissed off about like this idea that like, oh, all men are bad. And that's not clearly what the movie is doing. That's not really the point of the movie. And you can't write off the entire movie because you think that Olivia Wilde is trying to say that all men are bad. It's not that kind of movie. There's more at play here. It just sucks that it misses a lot of the swings it attempts. And because of that, it's easy to jump on the movie. Every once in a while, you get a movie like this that everyone it's just fun to beat up on. You get this pretty often where it's just like, oh, this is the movie that all the critics are going to jump on and beat the fuck up because it's fun. Well, and I don't think it fully deserves that. I don't think it's on exactly that level. Blonde, on the other hand, I think it's more on that level. Like, beat the fuck up out of that movie.
Just go ahead and give your thoughts.
Really?
Just go ahead and do your 90 seconds on Blonde. You've done this off mic to me, and I have no plans on watching this movie from everything that I've heard about it.
So Blonde is on Netflix right now. It's the new Andrew Dominic film starring Ana de Armas as Marilyn Monroe. It's nearly 3 hours long, and it is an extremely upsetting film in the worst way possible. It feels bad the whole time. It's not fun, and it's not the kind of movie that feels bad in the fun way. It feels bad in the not fun way.
Yeah, it's not fun in like the this is depraved way. It's
I gave it a 5 out of 10 just for the cinematography and the attempt by Ana de Armas to give a incredible performance. I don't think the movie does her any favors, but she's clearly trying really hard, and the creative team behind the camera, or operating the camera, capturing the shots, did a good job. I just don't think the movie works well from a storytelling perspective. It's just this meandering mess of a movie that focuses on incredibly upsetting imagery that is not really accurate to the real Marilyn Monroe at all. It's incredibly fictionalized.
So that's one thing I wanted to talk about, because I don't think that a lot of people, we're trained to believe it's the Patch Adams effect, if you will, that you see a movie about a historical figure, a real person, real life, and you think, yep, this is a factual document. I can believe all the things that are happening here. It's not even based on like a memoir by Marilyn Monroe. It's written by I think her name is Joyce Kennedy, the writer of the book,
who said it's from the year 2000, I think it was published, and who said this is a fictional book.
She said, like, I studied some things about Marilyn Monroe's life, but also like I filled in the blanks with my own imagination. And filling in the blanks happened to be like the most brutal and upsetting things that are depicted in this movie and in the book, including like, I mean, spoilers for Blonde, but from everything I've heard, multiple abortion sequences,
extremely upsetting abortion sequences.
Rape sequences, which just so very upsetting. And this is truly insane to me, and it blew my mind. I thought this was fake when I heard this. There is a talking dead fetus.
No, that's not exactly what it is.
What is it exactly?
So
please
throughout
set up the scene.
Throughout the course of the movie, Marilyn Monroe, aka Norma Jean, is did we lose Brian? No. Oh, you look so in the zone. You were frozen.
No, I was like listening. You guys are good. Sell me on it.
So throughout the course of this movie, we see multiple pregnancies, and the pregnancies are depicted in CGI fetus on screen, where we zoom in, the camera zooms into Marilyn Monroe's uterus, and we see CGI fetus. So as the movie goes on, we see this recurring image of the CGI fetus, and there's an abortion, there's a miscarriage. It's all kind of very muddy. There's not a lot of clarity in what's going on. And then eventually we get a voice coming, and we discover that it is coming from her uterus, and then we see the CGI fetus again, and it's like, "Mommy, you wouldn't kill me again, will you? You wouldn't do that to me again, will you?" And
Fuck
she's
that
like,
shit.
"You're not the same baby." The fetus is like, "Yes, I am. It's me again, and you wouldn't get rid of me again, would you?"
That's like some like conservative,
It's like pro-life
that's some
propaganda.
like fucking propagandist bullshit. Like, no, dude, like that is so upsetting in like the worst possible ways.
It's
and
trash.
one of the things, I mean, again, tying this back to
Makes
Don't
me
Worry,
feel
Darling,
bad giving it a 5 out of 10.
tying this back to Don't Worry, Darling, about fucking digging yourself a hole in the press. everything that Andrew Dominic has said, the director of this film has said about this, has made me less likely want to watch this movie.
Yeah. He doesn't seem
listen to
interested
interviews,
in Marilyn Monroe at all.
He said he originally wrote this story for a serial killer.
He said he could have.
He could have.
He
And
could
then
have
he
been-
just was like, yeah, this will work for Marilyn Monroe too. They're basically the same person. Acting, mass murder,
Same
it's kind of the same thing. Marilyn Monroe wasn't just like this horribly tragic figure that only the worst things happen for, and you had to make a fucking rape fantasy about. She also was this incredibly powerful, liberating woman who kind of like broke this whole idea of this like beauty blonde bombshell. She made her own production company. Andrew Dominic has said, no, I actually wasn't interested in any of that. I wasn't interested in anything good that she's ever done in her life. I was only ever interested in her being this abused figure.
Right. Well, that's the thing. It's like, that's all you see on
thing.
screen is a
whole
victim.
thing where it's like, not to make this a whole thing of like who can tell what stories and everything else like that, but like if this was in the hands of a woman, would it have been handled in the same way?
Hell no.
Definitely not.
No
So
way.
like maybe fucking Andrew Dominic wasn't the guy to handle the Marilyn Monroe. Like there aren't a ton. I mean, there's Marilyn Monroe biopics out there. There are historical depictions of her in film, but this is kind of almost trying to act as like, this is the central artifact. This is the Marilyn Monroe biography.
It's just not.
And the fact that it's like blurring all these historical details, and it's like just so it's depicting her in like all of the worst possible ways, and like not showing any of her W's is just it's so
well.
icky.
It
This
does
whole
show.
thing is just icky.
It
Like,
just,
I just
it
don't want
shows some of it. It's not all fictionalized. Like that's another really weird thing about it is like we get these really accurate recreations of some of her movies and like famous moments and stuff. And to see that juxtaposed with a lot of the fictionalized stuff muddies the waters even more. And I do think that one of the more interesting parts of the movie is that Ana de Armas is playing this character as this really haunted figure. That Norma Jean is this woman that is being possessed by Marilyn Monroe, this artificial performance that's not actually a real person that she has to embody in order to survive because of what she's been through in the world. And I think that's an avenue worth exploring. And I could tell her attempt to really do that in the performance that, yeah, it does kind of become a little bit one note after nearly 3 hours, where everything that happens to this woman is just so tragic and fucked up and upsetting. But there is a little sliver of clarity there of this is someone who is so broken and so just beyond traumatized that it's a coping mechanism. It's a survival instinct to click into this mode of this starlet in order to survive, in order to keep going. And tragically, she didn't make it very far. I mean, Marilyn Monroe died when she was only 36 years old. So I think that there was an attempt there to explore like why that must have happened, what led her to that point, what were the things that kind of, gave way to that tragic ending. I just don't think the movie is a incredibly affecting watching experience. Adrian Brody is in there. We love to see him for a little bit. And also the movie.
Does he play? He hasn't played Joe DiMaggio.
Joe DiMaggio is
Bobby Cannavale.
Bobby Cannavale.
Love that.
Adrian Brody is Arthur Miller.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. This movie infamously got an NC-17 rating. And the whole time I was thinking, why? And there's obviously like a good bit of nudity. There's the fucking fetus bullshit. But the whole time I was like,
she does have sex with John F. Kennedy.
Okay.
I've heard about that.
That scene is the NC-17 scene because it is so unnecessarily gratuitous where she is in a delirious state dragged into a hotel room with JFK sitting in his bed on the phone. He doesn't even pay any attention to her. And she's trying to talk to him. She's trying to have a conversation with him. He's on the phone the whole time. And then he basically forces her to give him a blowjob. And you don't see his dick, but the camera is like fixed on her face as she like goes up and down on his dick. And it's like way too drawn out of a scene. It's like, we don't need to see this whole scene. And that's another instance of like, why?
Fuck this.
Why?
Man. Like, truly,
Why?
Feels bad. Feels real bad.
All right, so what, in like 10 years they remake it and it's like better?
With
not like all shitty and I don't know.
I just like
don't remake it. We don't
Well,
need
don't
more.
remake
Probably
this,
not. Probably not.
I think that the better way to tackle like a Marilyn Monroe story is to almost do like a one day in the life. Like maybe you pick up when she's on the set of Some Like It Hot or something like that. Like do kind of something like that of
zero in on something a little bit more.
Or I mean, if you're gonna do the wide swath thing, just I don't know, don't make it all fucking dour.
Well, that's
like,
another reason why there are some people out there, like if you look on Letterboxd, there are some people that are really liking this movie. And I think that some of them are gravitating towards that aspect of this movie that's like, yeah, it's doing something different. It's not your average biopic. It's unlike anything else. And like, yeah, it is unlike anything else, but it's also like just really fucked up and just not not a good movie watching experience.
Save 3,000 Years and Barbarian, because I've seen those. I want to talk about those with you.
Oh, so we're wrapping it up?
No. Like, let me pitch you on a couple of things.
Oh, okay.
You came in here, you pitched me on.
Okay.
You pitched me on one thing, and you confirmed that I will never watch. Also, it's 3 hours.
Would not recommend.
That's a whole other thing about Blonde. Is it'd be one thing if it's like, yeah, I guess I could find like 100 minutes somewhere to like watch. I could find like an hour 45 to throw this on. I'm not committing 3 hours of my life to this movie.
No.
Like there's so many better things I could do with my life with 3 hours than to sit down and watch that and then just feel bad.
No way.
Okay. Let me pitch you on 3 things, 3 items. 2, I absolutely love. And 1 was one of the biggest disappointments that I've seen this year.
Uh-oh.
I'll start with the positives. First things first, a little film by the name of Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris.
Okay, you did send a message about this, and I thought I was dreaming because this is not a real movie.
So this is a real movie. It is starring Leslie Manville. Imagine it is Paddington meets Phantom Thread.
That's incredible.
It's so delightful, but it's just Leslie Manville she's a 1950s. She's a cleaning lady, and
notably not her character from Phantom Thread.
No, but it's like an alternate timeline, like a different door. This is the same time period of London. Brian, have you ever seen the movie Phantom Thread?
Daniel Day-Lewis.
No, it's like the one movie of his I haven't seen.
Incredible.
Is Amy
movie.
Adams in it or no?
No.
No?
It's
I'm thinking of The Master.
Yeah, you're thinking of The Master. Yeah.
Gotcha. I'll watch it. I'll let y'all know.
You should watch Phantom Thread. It is a wild movie, especially if you have not seen it before. It takes a turn and you're like, what are we doing?
I haven't even seen the trailer. So.
It's amazing.
Right on.
This movie, very different tonally, but same kind of idea of it's this era of London French fashion, going to these, like where the wealthy would go out and see these models walk through like this tiny little room and just basically do a little runway show for them. Anyways, Mrs. Harris, Leslie Manville plays this cleaning lady who ends up basically like winning a bunch of money through like kind of a lottery type system, and wins the ability to take a trip to Paris and buy a dress for herself. It was one thing that her husband recently passed away. And so she's just like all alone, and she just never really goes out anymore, or does anything, or let herself like move on with her life and kind of have fun. And she like talks with her best friend and she's like, you know what, like I just need a nice dress. Like, just this is one thing that I want to do, is that my dream is to go to Paris and to actually see the models walking and say like, I want to buy that dress right there. That's her dream. And so she just gets to go to Paris and just live out that dream. And there's like,
nice.
There's a little bit of conflict along the way, but it's like,
it's
Paddington conflict. It's just a movie that like,
movie.
I just had a smile on my face the entire time I was watching it. Like, this movie, I think, is in like my number 7 or 8 movie of the year right now. Nice. This movie is in my top 10 just because like this is a warm bath of a movie. I saw this movie after like finding out that like a member of my family had just recently passed away. And I just like went and saw Mrs. Harris. And this was just like a warm embrace. Like, this was just a perfect time in the movie theater. I absolutely love it. Leslie Manville is such a queen. And we need to appreciate Leslie Manville for everything that she does for society.
This director hasn't really done much else. This is like the most high profile thing. Anthony Fabian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, he hasn't done like really anything at all. I don't know what the making of this film was. I mean, it's a pretty low budget movie. Aside from like costumes, they're shooting in very small London and Paris locations, a lot of like apartments. It's a very kind movie. This is a great date night movie. Like, highly recommend. You're just with the wifey, with the husband, and you're just like, I just want to throw on just something nice that we can just have fun. We can have like dinner, drinks, and just like snuggle up and watch like a nice, fun, warm movie. This is perfect for that.
It must be on streaming at this point, because you saw it a little while ago.
I believe it's available. Yeah, it looks like it's available to rent now. Let me see if it's premium VOD.
No, it's not. It's $5.99.
$5.99. Yeah, 100% worth the $5. Like, you will not regret watching this movie. It's a great time.
Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. Hell yeah.
This next one is even higher up in one of my favorite movies of the year. And at this point, I think it's probably a lock for my top 10. And that is a little movie about a little shell.
Marcel.
Specifically, Marcel the Shell with shoes on. A24's movie based on the YouTube sensation from 2011.
I totally missed that.
2012-ish. So thank you for saying that. I guess it was an internet phenomenon. And like, I don't know where. Did I black out during this time? I don't know.
Never experienced that.
So I don't have the same level of nostalgia towards Brian. Do you remember Marcel the Shell whenever that was an internet thing?
No, I saw like one of them. It's like around that Fred blonde kid or the angry orange thing.
Yeah, it's like it's just past like early YouTube, but it's before like modern YouTube kicked in with like everything being reaction videos.
Does Angry Orange make a cameo through a portal? And Marcel the Shell?
Marcel the Shell here's like on your left, and then just Fred shows up.
This is on my list. I have a letterbox list of like my priority watch list, and this has been up there for a little while.
Is it still Jenny Slate? Not to step on toes, Hunt. Is it still Jenny? Oh, hell yeah, dude.
So,
okay,
yeah, cool, Jenny Slate is the voice of Marcel. So just a little bit of background. The director of this, Dean Fleischerkamp, is the same one who made these YouTube videos. At the time, whenever he was making them, him and Jenny Slate were married together. They have since gotten divorced, but they still came back together to make this movie together. And there's a whole kind of subplot. I mean, very notably, like, and importantly, Marcel is the star of this movie. We don't focus too much, but Dean Fleischerkamp is a character in the story, and he is coming off of a divorce. Like, so it's also like kind of commenting on his own, like needing to move on from his relationship with Jenny Slate, as Jenny Slate is voicing the character of Marcel in this movie. Wow. It's really incredible how they actually find this balance, if you know a little bit about like the behind the scenes of this. But oh man, I mean, once again, talk about just like a warm bath of a movie. This is just so delightful. Very just, it's kind of one of those things where it's like the cuteness factor like can't be like underrated here. Like this movie is just like, it's so charming in all of the right ways. It's very funny, very, very funny. Like there's a lot of like really like hysterical laugh out loud moments in this. There's a ton of heart, specifically with Marcel's grandmother, who I'm trying to pull up her name right now, but played by the absolute legend. I'm wearing the shirt here, Isabella Rossellini herself from Blue Velvet fame.
That's so cool.
She's incredible as like this elderly grandmother, and this kind of touches on like what it's like to like lose loved ones. I mean, the story of this, Marcel gets separated from his family and he's just trying to like reunite with them and like trying to make it on your own. Like this movie has so many big ideas, but it never feels like it is trying to preach too much. It never feels too weighty with all of the ideas that it's trying to put in here, because it still kind of maintains this levity. Like at the end of the day, like we'll have this like heady moment, and then you see Marcel just like stepping in like a little lid of honey so that he can walk on the ceiling to get up to like wherever he wants to go. Like
as you should.
Which, by the way, the animation in this is incredible. Like we talk a lot about the death of stop motion, and like the blending of stop motion and CGI that they did in this movie looks so good. Like this movie is kind of going to age perfectly. Like it's one of those things that, you know, we watch so many modern movies that are just CGI fests, like the Marvels of them all and everything else, where they look bad in the moment and you know they're only going to look worse.
5 years, just total trash.
Thor Love and Thunder looks as good right now as it ever will for all of history. Yeah. Like it's never going to look better than it does right now, and it already doesn't look great. Marcel is just going to age so well because there is such a physical element to the art design, and it's absolutely wonderful. I don't know, I believe that this is also on VOD now. I think this one might be premium because it's A24.
So A24 has been a little bit more patient with some of their releases, but they have a deal with Showtime. Like it'll end up on Showtime.
Yeah, I mean eventually it'll end up on Canopy too. If you have a library card,
that's a lot
eventually
further down the road.
Usually like 6 to 9 months it'll show up on there.
X just got put on Showtime like this week.
Oh, well.
And that was out around the same time as Marcel the Shell came out. So I'm just waiting for it. But it's a $4.99 rental right now. So
I like this is like the highest recommendation that I could give. Like I truly I love this movie. I cannot wait for the Blu-ray to come out, or especially for the 4K even to come out, because this is going to be like, I watch TV and movies to go to sleep all the time, and like
it's a comfort watch.
I just already know that this is going to be in my comfort watch movies. Nice. Like this is just going to be in there, one of the things that I just want to like throw on in the background as I'm doing other things.
Letterboxd loves it. 4.3 average.
Yeah,
on Letterboxd.
It has more 5 stars than it has any other rating.
Yeah,
it's nuts. I can't believe. Also, this is a movie about a fucking YouTube shell that's just like says little fun, quirky things. Like, how is this movie good? Like, this is like such a success story that like I don't know. I have no idea if Dean Fleischerkamp's success with this has any bearing on him as like a writer director, or if he has had like one idea in the can for the last 10 years and was just only ready to like really pop off on this. But
can anyone guess what he's attached to direct next?
It's a big thing. Yeah, I looked it up. What is it? I know it's something that I saw and I was like, we're really trusting this guy who just made his passion project, right?
It's a Disney live action remake. Any guesses? One of their they love to do this. Disney just attaches little indie directors to their live action remakes so that they can toss them around. Any guesses?
I mean, I know it's not Little Mermaid. It's not
Snow White.
Lilo and Stitch.
Oh, Lilo and Stitch. That's what it is. Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Really? Oh my
I
God.
guarantee
see.
you it won't happen. There's no way it'll happen.
We'll see. I mean, he was good at animating stop motion stuff. Lilo and Stitch, there's no way they can do that in a live action
No
way.
way.
Like, it's
It
gonna
would
get
be
scary.
horrifying.
Like Stitch in
Yeah.
live action is like kind of like a
Yeah.
scary, monstrous
It's gonna
figure.
be fucked up.
I don't know if you want to see that.
Oh, I can't wait to see Marcel the Shell with the shoes on. I am very excited for it.
Cool.
You said you had one more?
Yeah, one more. This will be brief. I just want to talk about like one of my biggest disappointments of the year. As listeners know, I'm a big documentary fan, especially like I love a great music documentary. Like it's just one of my favorite things. Is just I think was it 2 years ago that American Utopia was my #1 film of the year.
Great movie.
And this year, I've really gone on a project where I've gone on a deep dive into Bowie. Like Bowie is one of those artists who I've always like really appreciated and admired. And he's one of my wife of the podcast, Gaia's favorite artists. So started kind of going back to like hunky dory era David Bowie, and I've listened through like every album at this point, like just kind of going through really, really taking this deep dive. And there was a big David Bowie biography or documentary that came out this year. I hesitate to even use the word documentary because
it's like a collage of footage.
Collage is one word for it.
Moonage Daydream.
Yeah, I'm talking
Which
about
had a lot
Bowie's
of hype
Moonage Daydream
leading up to it.
Yeah, it's made by Brett Morgan, who's made like some really notable documentaries. He made a Kurt Cobain documentary a few years ago that got a lot of buzz. Made a Jane Austen documentary that got like Jane Goodall. That's who it was. Sorry.
I heard about that.
Yeah, that I've heard awesome things about that.
It's called Jane.
Just called Jane. So I was excited for this. It looked really cool. The ad for it got me super hyped. It was like a film music experience of David Bowie. And this was just kind of like one of the biggest disappointments that I've had in a movie this year, that it's one of those documentaries where it feels more like the director is trying to almost show off about themselves and they kind of lose sight of the subject matter, which is one of the things that drives me insane. And I truly hate that about documentary filmmakers, unless it's done in like almost a self-parodying way, like The Rehearsal is using. But that's one of the things that's a genius of The Rehearsal, because it's flipping that whole stigma. But Moonage Daydream is something that, and maybe it's because it's trying to do too many things at once. It's trying to tell this long story of David Bowie's career while also having like concert documentary parts to it, and also just trying to be this like visual spectacle where it's trying to put you in the mind of David Bowie. But the only way that that's visualized is what I can just call it. There's a little bit of, this is going to sound very insulting, but Family Guyification to this, where it's a lot of
the cutaways.
It's a lot of cutaways. It reminds me a lot of, do you remember a few years ago where there was the 2 Firefest documentaries? There's the one on Netflix and there's the one on Hulu, where the one on Hulu was not very good in my opinion, because it was just a lot of, every time somebody talked, it was like, let's cut to an image of a thing of like Donald Duck getting hit in the head with a hammer to like bring this point home, and like kind of stuff like that. There's a lot of that in this movie. There's a lot of recycled footage. Like there's
same shots.
We just see the same shot of David Bowie walking like 6 times in like a 25-minute span. And it's like, I know for a fact there's more Bowie in this. There's a lot of like weird editing choices where it's this like punishing bright lights coming at you at the same time, and all these like ambient noises, to the point where it's like David Bowie's giving a documentary, or he's giving like an interview, and like with BBC or whoever else, he's like giving an interview, and then like you can't even hear what he's saying sometimes because there's just this like
sound effect.
vomit of noise and colors that's taking over your screen. It was really frustrating to me watching this movie. Like, it was just one of those things where I was like, can we just get back to David Bowie? Like, when this movie is about David Bowie, it rocks. Like, David Bowie is a fascinating figure. Like, he is such an incredible
one.
He truly is a one of one guy. And especially like how he was one of those type of people. I mean, it's him, Dylan, in this era who are just constantly looking to reinvent themselves. Like, it's just, you are never happy in one place. You never want to stay complacent. It's like, I've had this sound. I have like this cult following behind me. Fuck it. I'm moving to Berlin and I'm just embracing electronic as my sound now. It's just kind of like all this whole thing of like, I always want to keep things fresh that made him so incredible. That it was just such a big miss. I was talking about it with Gaia afterwards, and I don't know why it hasn't been made yet. Maybe they're
the Great Bowie movie.
Well, not just the Great Bowie movie, but I want the Black Star movie. I want a movie that we can touch on Bowie's life, but specifically for people who don't know, David Bowie, right before he died, he knew that he was on deathbed, and he wrote his final album, Black Star, which is one of the best albums of the 2010s. Absolute masterpiece. Perfect rock
really
album.
Sad.
It is sad, but it's almost like hearing an album from the other side. Like, that is my recommendation from all this is, if you've never listened to it, listen to David Bowie's final album, Black Star. And I want a documentary about the making of that. We could get James Murphy involved because he was heavily involved in the production of that album. Lead singer of LCD Sound System, did all the drums on Black Star. That's the Bowie movie that I want to get made.
So I watched a documentary a few years ago. It came out in 2017. It's called David Bowie, The Last 5 Years. Have you heard of this?
No.
So it's a documentary. It touches on Black Star. It also talks about his previous album before that called The Next Day, and the play that he was working on called Lazarus that was tangentially related to Black Star. I remember that being pretty good. I mean, I wasn't really blown away by it. Didn't really stick in my mind too much, but again, another instance of like an attempt.
Oh, it's on HBO Max
to dig into. Yeah, I remember being, it being pretty okay. I wasn't like disappointed by it or anything. It's a solid little doc, but I think we are still waiting for the definitive Bowie movie.
Yeah.
In whatever form it may come. They tried to do a biopic a couple years ago, but they didn't license any of his music.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's the point of that?
Yeah. What was it? Stardust? Is that what it was called? Yeah. And then, this guy, Johnny Flynn, was going to play Bowie. I don't know who. I don't think that we have an actor right now who could do Bowie.
No.
I could see like Timothy Chalamet trying to do it and it just not working.
Austin Butler.
Do you want to talk Elvis?
Himself.
Do you want to talk Elvis?
Elvis.
Look, Elvis was a hurricane watch for me.
Did you see Elvis, Brian?
No, I've been meaning to. I see it on HBO. I will, but it's not going anywhere.
Let's talk Elvis a little bit before we wrap.
I have some thoughts on Elvis. I will say, I have very, very complicated feelings about.
It's an insane movie. It's edited to shreds. It has these wildly like shifting montage sequences that just don't let up. And it feels like a 2.5 hour trailer almost. It is just
that's an incredible description of it. Yeah.
It does feel like non-stop just force of a movie, and it feels exhausting. It is an exhausting movie. I didn't hate it. And I think Austin Butler gives a really good performance. It just doesn't slow down. Like, it covers an incredibly long period of time. And you need to have a good movie. You need moments of just levity to dig into a little bit of like actual story and character and drama. And this movie just doesn't have that. It's just go, go, go. On to the next thing, keep going, keep moving, boom, boom, boom. And there's some incredibly dazzling visual moments. Like the camera is just always moving. The look, the bedazzled quality.
It is gaudy as hell.
Yeah,
it's
wild.
It's all over the top. But I think like it's kind of gaudy in all the right ways. Like I was saying is like I have a very complicated relationship with Baz Luhrmann. I was a big fan, as listeners know. I'm a little theater boy. I grew up kind of doing theater. I love kind of theater stuff, and so I've seen Romeo plus Juliet, seen Moulin Rouge. I really, really loved Moulin Rouge whenever I was a kid. And so when The Great Gatsby came out, I was so excited. That came out right around my birthday, senior year of high school, I believe. And I was just like, fuck yes. Great Gatsby is my favorite book. It's the great American novel. Baz Luhrmann's making this. Leo as Jay Gatsby is just, he was born to play Jay Gatsby. Like this is, you could not craft better casting for this. And I was like, Luhrmann gets it. He'll be here. He'll know how to do this right. And like, that is one of the most disappointing theater experiences that I've ever had in my life, that I could not believe. Once the like 7th Jay-Z song started playing, I think that like, I just checked out to a point that I could not ever return to it. It was such a colossal disappointment. And so I was kind of a little bit hesitant to go into Elvis. Not to mention, like, I don't know about you guys, but like I don't have a relationship with Elvis. Like I don't give a shit about Elvis. Do you guys care about Elvis?
Speaking of Lilo and Stitch, that's the Elvis I need is that soundtrack.
Brian, do you listen to Elvis? Are you an Elvis guy?
I mean, you are closer to Graceland than any of us, so.
Well, that's the thing. I had that grandma with the VHS. It's like, I think she liked Elvis. I don't know. But no, honestly, his little cameo in Dewey Cox. What else?
Great.
It is Elvis.
This movie, Elvis the movie, is basically Walk Hard. Like there are some verbatim sequences.
Dude, so you've seen Walk Hard. They're literally in the first 15 minutes of the movie, Elvis has the scene of like the pelvic thrusting at like the little dance hall. It blew my mind whenever I saw it. I was like, we parodied this like 15 years ago and we're doing it again.
Yeah. But going for it. Like that scene is crazy.
It's insane.
It goes for it. He wiggles hard.
He when he starts shaking, like women are just like getting pregnant.
Yeah.
Just by like looking at him shake around. Like it is insane what is happening in this sequence.
Austin Butler is still in the running for best actor.
It's him. Like it's so funny watching him in this movie because also the flashback cuts to him in like a black church and like all this kind of stuff where
insane.
Anytime that you start to buy into Elvis, you're like, oh yeah, he did like steal all of his music from black culture, and oh, he's appropriating that thing. He definitely stole that sound.
I'm glad they showed it in the movie.
I mean, yeah, no, that's the thing. Like, I kind of like this movie. I'm gonna be honest. I saw this movie. At this point, I was out of power for about 48 hours. It was pitch black in my house. I had enough phone battery on here. I did not download Elvis ahead of time, but I was like, I really want to watch Elvis.
5G.
So I am going to use my phone as a hotspot for long enough to watch the film Elvis here. In hindsight, probably wasn't the best use of my limited internet, of my limited power, but you know, you live and you learn. And at this point, I was probably about 6 White Claws deep, if I'm honest.
Perfect
right
for
into
Elvis.
It. And I was like, you know what? I'm ready to watch Elvis. And I was surprisingly sucked in. I was expecting to watch it as a joke and be like, ha ha ha, fuck this movie.
I mean, even from the beginning, when the camera's like spinning into Vegas,
it's insane in like all the best ways that I was like, you will know very early on if you are in or you are out on this movie.
Yeah.
And I like movies that do that, where it's like, you're either in or you're out. Yeah. Like you're going to make that decision very early on.
We haven't said the words Tom Hanks yet.
So that's the thing. That is the most insane part about this movie, Tom Hanks is easily the worst part about this movie.
Yeah,
By a
just full
country mile,
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Tom Hanks like single-handedly tries to nosedive this movie. And I don't know, I've never said that in my life about Tom Hanks in this movie, but Tom Hanks is between this and Pinocchio, which is another film that I have seen. I don't know what Tom Hanks is doing anymore.
He's cashing those checks, dude.
I guess he is. But
he famously contracted COVID while filming this movie. The world was reeling.
So this movie makes the choice. Elvis himself is not an interesting character enough for us to frame this movie through his point of view. So instead, we need to frame this movie through the point of view of his agent, who like took 50% of all of Elvis's profits and
merchandise deals.
Kind of, he did in some ways make Elvis what he was.
Right.
Like Elvis would not have been as big if there wasn't like Elvis action figures and shit like that. But also Elvis wanted to do things like take a set out of the country, grow in international audiences, do stadium tours. And Tom Hanks's character, Colonel Tom Parker, was not a colonel or a Tom, had a very sketchy background of some kind, was like Eastern European, was basically like belonged to no country, so he couldn't get a passport of any kind.
He didn't exist.
Was the person
Here's
who
a shadow.
Locked Elvis down into being like doing like basically the first residency in Vegas, and ruined his life and kept like giving him pills and kind of killed Elvis. And that's who we spend as like our audience surrogate, as our viewpoint into the world of Elvis for this movie, which is such an insane idea. And it does not work. It's
wild.
It does not work. Anytime the movie would be going good and then Colonel Tom Parker voiceover would kick in, I'd be like, oh,
what are we doing?
Oh yeah, we're doing this again, aren't we? Okay.
But then it's Tom Hanks and just the sheer like just bizarre entertainment of seeing that performance. There is something there, even if it doesn't work. Just like the weirdness of it, the bizarre quality of this guy just caked in this makeup to look like this fucking colonel. Just insane.
This movie does contain, I think, the funniest scene of the year, which at this point now it's been memed on Twitter and everything. But Cody Smith McPhee showing up for one scene to just be like, you guys don't get it. He's wide. And everybody cut to camera.
Zoom in on Tom Hanks.
Zoom on every. He's white.
He's white.
It's incredible. Like I can't believe it. I really enjoyed this movie for what it was.
Yeah. No, Elvis good.
Elvis good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch it now. I'll watch it this weekend.
It's worth
Check
it.
it out.
Get inebriated to a certain extent.
Sure.
You'll enjoy
some
it more.
popcorn, some pizza. Oh yeah.
There you go.
All right, fellas. Well, we can wrap it up there. Thank you, Elvis. Thank you, the King, for keeping us going. And thank you, Brian, for sticking around. Thank you for supporting the show and letting us have these nifty new headphones, courtesy of you and all the great donors.
The audience can't hear the difference, but I can.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on anything that we talked about before we wrap up?
I'll give two things. I am going to watch Elvis. I'm not going to watch Blonde. I am going to watch RV. I'm not going to. No, hey, I'm about 3 or 4 episodes into this show on Hulu called Reboot. It's my only thing on Ketchup Corner. Dude, guys, it's pretty funny. It's got
I've
the lady from Crazy Girl. Yeah, honestly, it's pretty freaking funny. Johnny Knoxville, he's not, I don't know. It's more serious than I thought.
Johnny Knoxville.
It's Keegan-Michael Key, Johnny Knoxville, the child actor from the show. He was like 5. Now he's like an 18-year-old like douchebag. I think you say douchebag. He's kind of a douchebag. And he's like, hey, do you think that was cool when I was a kid? He's like just always on people's case because now, I don't know. It's so funny.
Dude, this cast is great. Oh my God, Judy Greer, Paul Reiser, Fred Melamed is in this movie.
Oh,
the serious man himself, Cy Abelman.
He's like rebooting the sitcom. Yeah. And well, yeah, I guess it's called Reboot. So no spoilers, but it's a pretty good show. So
Did
yeah.
it all drop at once or is it week to week?
Week to week? I caught up on 3 and then I pulled it up the next day and it was up to 4. So I think that was a coincidence. And yeah, it might be 5 this week or
Cool.
I got lazy. I watched it all about 2 weeks ago or last week. And guys, I'd check it out. It's honestly pretty good.
Hulu
Nice.
has some solid stuff right now. They
Mhm.
got, I mean, obviously What We Do in the Shadows, Reservation Dogs, Atlanta.
I've never seen What We Do in the Shadows. You guys
Dude,
always
so
talk
good.
about it.
It's great.
Take the plunge,
Ah,
dude.
I love
You
the
will
movie.
Love
Ugh.
that show.
Yeah, if you love the movie, then you'll love the show.
Okay,
Like that's,
I've been
yeah.
waiting.
Yeah.
Damn, I'm
Yeah.
gonna watch
Dive
it.
into it. Dive into it. It's such an easy watch. It's so funny.
It is the season. Spooky.
It is spooky season. Yes.
I'll get into it. Hell yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on. Hopefully we'll have you on again soon. And yeah, thank you all for watching. Please rate, review, subscribe, like, and comment, and let us know about all the things that we talked about. We didn't get to Barbarian and 3,000 Years. So we'll
Okay.
put a pin in those. Those are two really, really worthy movies.
We're gonna have to get into
discuss.
spoilers on both of those movies.
Yes,
too.
yes.
So we might. This will have to be a different forum.
I also wrote down just to mention them, the other things that I wrote down. Prey.
Yeah.
Not as like kind of dissect worthy, but
Dan
still a good movie.
Trachtenberg, a great movie.
The Avatar re-release, I went back to Pandora and experienced this. So we got to ramp up for Way of Water, folks. The Empty Man. I experienced The Empty Man, one of the most low-key, like kind of word of mouth movies of the last couple of years. Horror movie, if we're talking spooky season. Great movie.
I'm really excited. I need to check
worth
that out.
watching.
I had that queued up that I might watch that this week just to get in the spooky mood.
Let me know if you do. It's one of those that you'll want to talk about because there's a lot there. There's a lot going on with The Empty Man. And then on the TV side, Andor is excellent. Star Wars Andor.
I'm hard out on all Star Wars content right now. I'm sorry. I'll dive back in
It's
one
really
day,
good.
but I need a break from Marvel and Star Wars.
And Survivor is back.
Hey.
Survivor 43.
So far, the first 3 episodes are great. There's some incredible characters this
Yeah.
season.
We'll have to do a check-in.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do one for that.
It's shaping up to be good. So yeah, a lot of stuff to dig into. We got through a lot of it, but not everything. But what are you gonna do? We can't
So
be
much
here for
ketchup
5
in this
hours.
bottle.
Yeah, it was a big old bottle of Chup, big old fatty Chup bottle, and I feel like we got through, maybe a little over half of it. So it's at a good
Check it
level right
out.
now. Thanks again, Brian. Thanks again, listeners. Please check out our Patch Adams episode if you haven't already with Brian, and we'll see you for Bicentennial Man and more ketchup, more new movies. We have a review of The Banshees of Inisherin coming up,
A movie that we have seen.
amongst other fall Oscar awards buzzy movies. That's the dog letting us know it's time to go, and we'll see you next time. We love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.